Hey guys, so today I'm going to be talking about one of the most famous persons who ever lived, as well as one of the most influential people who decided the fate of the Roman Empire. That's right, he is Julius Caesar. Gaius Julius Caesar was born on 12 July 100 BC, was a Roman general and a statesman. A member of the first Triumvirate, Caesar had led the Roman armies in the Gallic Wars before defeating his political rival Pompey in a civil war and subsequently became dictator of Rome from 49 BC until his assassination in 44 BC. He played a critical role in the events that led to the demise of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. The three most notable people during Caesar's time were Gaius Julius Caesar, 140 BC to 85 BC. He was a Roman senator and father of the Roman dictator Julius Caesar. Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix, 138 to 78 BC, commonly known as Sulla. He won the large-scale civil war in Roman history and became the first man of the Republic to seize power through force. Gaius Marius, 157 BC and 13 January 86 BC, was the victor of the Cimbric and the Jacoratine Wars as well as the uncle of Julius Caesar. In 55 BC, Caesar repelled an incursion into Gaul by two Germanic tribes and followed it up by building a bridge across the Rhine and making a show of force in the Germanic territory before returning and dismantling the bridge. Later that summer, having subdued two other tribes, he crossed into Britain, claiming that the Britons had aided one of his enemies the previous years, possibly the Veneti or Brittany. Although his knowledge of Britain was poor, and he had gained a beachhead on the coast, he could not advance further. He raided out from his beachhead and destroyed some villages and then returned to Gaul for the winter. He returned the following year, better prepared and with a larger force, and achieved more. He advanced inland and established few alliances, but poor harvests led to widespread revolt in Gaul, forcing Caesar to leave Britain for the last time. Though the Gallic tribes were just as strong as the Romans militarily, the internal division among the Gauls guaranteed an easy victory for Caesar. Vercingetorix's attempt in 52 BC to unite them against the Roman invasion came too late. He proved an astute commander, defeating Caesar in the Battle of Gregovia, but Caesar's elaborate siege works at the Battle of Alesia finally forced his surrender. Despite scattered outbreaks of warfare the following year, Gaul was effectively conquered. While Caesar was in Britain, his daughter Julia, Pompey's wife, had died in childbirth. Caesar tried to resecure Pompey's support by offering him his great niece in marriage, but Pompey declined. In 53 BC, Crassus was killed leading a failed invasion of the East, and Rome was on the brink of a civil war. Pompey was appointed sole consul as an emergency measure and married the daughter of a political opponent of Caesar. The Triumvirate was dead. There is scholarly disagreement as to specific reasons why Caesar marched on Rome. The possibility of prosecution for actions in his consulship for 59 was unlikely. His objectives prior to the Civil War were to secure himself an immediate second consulship and triumph, having given up his triumph in 60 BC to stand for his first consulship. Caesar feared that his opponents, then holding both consulships for 50, would reject his candidacy, refuse to ratify an election result in which he was victor, or deny him a triumph for Gaul. On about 10 January 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, which is the frontier boundary of Italy, and with only a single region, the Legio XIII, Gemina, and ignited civil war. Upon crossing the Rubicon, Caesar approached to Plutarch and Suetonius, and is supposed to have quoted the Athenian playwright Menander in Greek, the die is cast. Pompey and many of the Senate fled to south, having little confidence in Pompey's newly raised troops. Pompey, despite greatly outnumbering Caesar, who had his 13th legion with him, did not intend to fight. Caesar pursued Pompey, hoping to capture Pompey before his legions could escape. Caesar, after this, became involved with the Egyptian civil war between the child pharaoh and his sister, wife, and co-regent queen Cleopatra. Perhaps as a result of the pharaoh's role in Pompey's murder, Caesar sided with Cleopatra. He withstood the siege of Alexandria, and later he defeated the pharaoh's forces at the Battle of the Nile in 47 BC. He then installed Cleopatra as ruler of Egypt. Caesar and Cleopatra celebrated the victory with a triumphal procession of the Nile in the spring of 47 BC. The royal barge was accompanied by 400 additional ships, and Caesar was introduced to the luxurious lifestyle of the Egyptian pharaohs. Caesar and Cleopatra, however, were not married. Caesar continued his relationship with Cleopatra throughout his last marriage. In Roman eyes, this did not constitute adultery, and probably fathered a son called Caesarion. Cleopatra then visited Rome on more than one occasion and resided in Caesar's villa just outside Rome across the Tiber. Later, in 48 BC, Caesar was again appointed dictator with a term of 1 year. After the civil war in Rome, Caesar became involved with the Egyptian civil war, which constituted between the child pharaoh and his sister, wife, and co-regent queen Cleopatra. Perhaps as a result of the pharaoh's role in Pompey's murder, Caesar sided with Cleopatra. He withstood the siege of Alexandria, and later he defeated the pharaoh's forces at the Battle of Nine in 47 BC, and he installed Cleopatra as ruler. Caesar and Cleopatra celebrated the victory with a triumphal procession on the Nile in the spring of 47 BC. The royal barge was accompanied by 400 additional ships, and Caesar was introduced to the luxurious lifestyles of the Egyptian pharaohs. Caesar and Cleopatra, however, were not married. He continued his relationship with Cleopatra throughout his last marriage. In Roman eyes, this did not constitute adultery, and probably fathered a son called Caesarion. Cleopatra visited Rome on more than one occasion and resided in Caesar's villa, which was just outside Rome across the Tiber. In 60 BC, Caesar sought election as consul for 59 BC along with two other candidates. The election was sorted. Even Cato, with his reputation for incorruptibility, is said to have resorted to bribery in favor of one of Caesar's opponents. Caesar won, along with conservative Marcus Bibulus. When Caesar was first elected, the aristocracy tried to limit future power by allocating the woods and pastures of Italy rather than the governorship of a province, as his military command duty after his year in office was over. With the help of political allies, Caesar secured passage of the Lex Vatinia, granting him governorship over Cisalpine Gaul, which was northern Italy, and Illyrium, southern Europe. At the instigation of Pompey and his father-in-law Piso, Transalpine Gaul, southern France, was added later after the untimely death of its governor, giving him command of 4 legions. The term of his governorship and thus his immunity from prosecution was set at 5 years rather than one. When consulship ended, Caesar narrowly avoided persecution for irregularities in his years in office and quickly left for his province. When Caesar returned to Rome, the Senate granted him triumphs for his victories, ostensibly those over Gaul, Egypt, Pharnaces, and Juba, rather than over his Roman opponents. When Arsinoe IV, Egypt's former queen, was paraded in chains, the spectators admired her dignified bearing and were moved to pity. Triumphal games were held with beast hunts involving 400 lions and gladiator contests. A naval battle was also held on a flooded basin at the Field of Mars. The Forum of Caesar with its temple of Venus Genetrix was then built, among many of the other public works. Caesar also tightly regulated the purchase of state-subsidized grain and reduced the number of recipients to a fixed number, all of whom were entered into a special register. From 47 to 44 BC, he made plans for the distribution of land to about 1,500 of his veterans. The most important change, however, was his reform of the calendar. The Roman calendar at the time was regulated by the movement of the moon. By replacing it with the Egyptian calendar based on the sun, Roman farmers were able to use it as the basis of consistent season planting from year to year. He set the length of the year to 365.25 days by adding an intercalary/leap day at the end of the February every fourth year. The history of Caesar's political appointment is complex and uncertain. Caesar held both the dictatorship and the tribunate, but alternated between the consulship and proconsulship. His powers within the tribunate seem to have been rested upon these magistracies. In 48 BC, Caesar was given permanent tribunical powers, which made him the person sacrosanct and allowed him to veto the Senate, although on at least one occasion tribunes did attempt to obstruct him. When Caesar returned to Rome in 47 BC, the ranks of the Senate had been severely depleted, so he used his censorial powers to appoint many new senators, which eventually raised the Senate's membership to 900. In 46 BC, Caesar gave himself the title of Prefect of the Morals, which was an office that was new only in name, as his powers were identical to those of the censors. Thus, he could hold censorial powers, which technically not subjecting himself to the same checks to which the ordinary censors were subject to. Coins bore his likeness, and he was given the right to speak first during the Senate meetings. Caesar then increased the number of magistrates who were elected each year, which created a large pool of experienced magistrates and allowed Caesar to reward his supporters. Caesar even took steps to transform Italy to a province and to link more tightly the other provinces of the empire into a single cohesive unit. This process of fusing the entire Roman Empire into a single unit rather than maintaining it as a network of unequal principalities would ultimately be completed by Caesar's successor, the Emperor Augustus. In October 45 BC, Caesar resigned his position as sole consul and facilitated the election of two successors for the remainder of the year, which theoretically restored the ordinary consulship, since the constitution did not recognize a single consul without a colleague. In 44 BC at February, 1 month before his assassination, he was appointed dictator in perpetuity. Under Caesar, a significant amount of authority was vested into his lieutenants, mostly because Caesar was frequently out of Italy. Near the end of his life, Caesar began to prepare for a war against the Parthian Empire. Since his absence from Rome might limit his ability to install his own councils, he passed a law which allowed him to appoint all magistrates and all consuls and tribunes. On the Ides of March, that is the 15th March of the Roman calendar in 44 BC, Caesar was due to appear at a session of the Senate. Several senators had conspired to assassinate Caesar, Antony having vaguely learned of the plot the night before from a terrified liberator named Servilius Casca, and fearing the worst, went to head Caesar off. The plotters, however, had anticipated this, and fearing that Antony would come to Caesar's aid, had arranged for Trebonius to intercept him just as he approached the portico of the theatre of Pompey, where the session was to be held, and detained him outside. Plutarch, however, assigns this action of delaying Antony to Brutus Albinus. When he heard the commotion from the Senate chamber, Antony fled. According to Plutarch, as Caesar arrived at the Senate, Tullius Cimber presented him with a petition to recall his exiled brother. The other conspirators crowded round to offer support. Both Plutarch and Suetonius say that Caesar waved him away, but Cimber grabbed his shoulders and pulled down Caesar's tunic. Caesar then cried to Cimber, "Why, this is violence," which in Latin it translates, "Istaca idem vis est." Casca simultaneously produced his dagger and made a glancing thrust at the dictator's neck. Caesar turned around quickly and caught Casca by the arm. According to Plutarch, he said in Latin, "Casca, you villain, what are you doing?" Casca, frightened, and shouted, "Help, brother," which in Greek translates to Adelph Boete. Within moments, the entire group, including Brutus, was striking out at the dictator. Caesar attempted to get away, but blinded by blood, he tripped and fell. The men continued stabbing him as he lay defenseless on the lower steps of the portico. According to Eutropius, around 60 men participated in the assassination, and he was stabbed 23 times. According to Suetonius, a physician later established that only one wound, the second one to his chest, had been lethal. The dictator's last words are not known with certainty and a contested subject among scholars and historians alike. Suetonius replies that the others have said Caesar's last words were the Greek phrase, "Kai sai thenkon," you too, child, in English. However, Suetonius' own opinion was that Caesar said nothing. Plutarch, however, also reports that Caesar said nothing, and pulling his toga over his head and saw Brutus among the conspirators. The version best known in the English-speaking world is the Latin phrase "Et tu, Brute," and "You too, Brutus," commonly rendered as "You too, Brutus," and is best known from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, where it actually forms the first half of the Macronic line "Et tu, Brute," then fall Caesar. The result of the assassination was unforeseen by assassins. Julius Caesar's death marked the end of the Roman Republic. The Roman middle and lower classes, with whom Caesar was immensely popular and had been since before Gaul, became enraged that a small group of aristocrats had killed their champion. The crowd at the funeral boiled over, throwing dry branches, furniture, and even clothing onto Caesar's funeral pyre, causing the flames to spin out of control and seriously damaging the forum. The mob then attacked the houses of Brutus and Cassius, where they were repelled only with considerable difficulty, which provided a spark for the civil war, fulfilling at least a part of Antony's threat against the aristocrats. Julius Caesar had been preparing to invade Parthia, the Caucasus, and the Scythia, and then march back to Germania through Eastern Europe. These plans were thwarted with his assassination. His successors did attempt the conquest of Parthia and Germania, but did not have any lasting results.